You recorded that. And we're back after a wonderful chill session. MoJoe at the controls. And
Howdy.
Our very special guest, again, Christine Stenquist.
Howdy.
Our first session was so enlightening, and very much looking forward to another one. And to start this, if I may impose,
Absolutely, no.
I want to ask you and answer that question that I'm going to ask you. Why prohibition? Why prohibit anything? Not just cannabis, as we've been talking, but all drugs and immoral behavior, prostitution, alcohol for a time. You know, why
the Quakers?
Prohibition? And it's that sort of mentality.
Well, we were founded by Puritans, essentially. You know?
But the thing is, LEAP taught me this: law enforcement against personnel. Prohibition doesn't work. It doesn't matter what you try to prohibit; it doesn't work.
Great.
And his best example of it was Saudi Arabia, I believe, or one of these theocratic-run countries. Like every year during a big soccer tournament, at halftime, they'll bring out some convicted drug dealers or something like that and chop their heads off in the middle of the stadium. And and again, he reminded us they do this every year. And why do they do it every year? Because prohibition does not work. Great. If it worked, chop one person's head off.
Good
Okay,
point.
problem solved. Now we're good.
Right.
Now we're done. So I just kind of want to use that as a leap-off point. And
Well, I think that's why. I think that's why I attached to the cannabis effort so much. I realized that the reasons why this was prohibited was based on a lie, and I couldn't stand. And that something inside me just could not stand that injustice, especially when it was bringing me such relief. And then to think that we were locking up human beings in boxes because of this plant, and there are people who are using it. There's been research out there. It just it compels you to do something. Like you just have to. And that's really it. Prohibition doesn't work. It's a failure as a concept.
I think people know that.
And it creates harm. Prohibition creates harm that it means to prevent.
And I think, your dad explained to me
law enforcement.
Law enforcement. And in California, I've heard multiple stories about how the police are really okay with the legalization of cannabis. It frees up a lot of their time.
Yes,
they don't, they're not opposed to
Well, the
this
same
that I know
officer.
of. I mean, do you have other...
Well, I think so California
Can you
is different
confirm
for
this,
us
or is
because
it,
they have been able to live with this for 23 years, cannabis in their state in this sort of different market. For Utah, we're not quite comfortable yet. So what I see when I look at law enforcement is not as much of a support as you would hope. It tends to be a split.
That's a little bit disappointing then.
You've got to remember regionally, everything is different and everything is steps. And it really will take conversations happening.
Yeah.
Your neighbor who's in law enforcement, share your story, share your insight. Hear hers or his perspective too. And this is where the community
the front lines
needs to,
right there.
Absolutely. But understand that law enforcement are there to enforce the laws.
Yes.
In the same breath, I see our officers up on the Hill advocating their issues and advocating against ours. So we do have to have this conversation. It needs to stop being a battleground so much. Yeah. A big reason why the name Truce is there is to hopefully invoke that sort of emotion towards each other. Absolutely. It's also a battle. I mean, war has to happen. And what I'm trying to help end is the war on drugs. Just our little tiny part. I mean, by no means I'm not trying to exaggerate my little tiny voice in all of this, but we're raising awareness. We're calling a truce to the war on drugs.
I'm hoping your truce movement makes its way all the way to our Congress.
Indeed.
Truce already.
And
Nothing's getting done.
Everybody's lips. I want everybody to know. Yeah.
Truce. Let's just start working together.
Well, and police, I think, are your biggest allies in this. I remember an interview with an officer, a general officer, not like a narcotics officer, but just one of the cops on the beat. He was asked the question, so when's the last time you had to go in and break up a fight because the people were drunk on alcohol? And he looked at his watch and says, about 12 hours ago. When's the last time you had to go break up a big melee because people were on cannabis? And he goes, it's never happened.
Right.
It's never been a problem,
And that's what you do. You find that. But you have law enforcement having to answer to the higher-ups, too. Everything, and not to be adjusting my tinfoil hat, scratch. But, everything dovetails. They have people, asset forfeiture, Civil asset
Civil,
forfeiture is a real thing. There is money.
I had no clue till I saw it on John Oliver's
John
show.
Oliver did it.
You
I was
have
like,
to-
you got to be kidding me.
Everybody wants their pound of flesh. The pharmaceutical companies, petroleum. You know, for cannabis to
Big oil.
be competitive. You know,
Yeah.
pharmaceutical companies. We have even lumber.
Budweiser.
Beer.
Beer.
Yeah.
Like you can name all the industries that will be affected.
Yes.
But that's where we have to start thinking, are we going to put people before politics? Are we going to keep letting special interests drive
I
everything?
think we're.
And there is special
There's-
interest in cannabis too. Let's
Yeah,
not be
absolutely.
Yeah.
Big
We were
Canna
talking about the
is
Ohio thing.
a thing. It truly, that's what was that online or off?
Nope,
I
that
can't
was
remember.
off. That was off.
We were talking about Ohio and what's happening here in Utah, what will happen in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
We see all these different organizations, and their bottom line is to answer to their board.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have their brokers they need to answer to in who are
Shareholders
putting money in
rule the
shareholders.
world. Yeah.
Exactly. So we all have to be mindful of the special interests and start understanding what our role is and how much we do control. That's why I wanted to do cannabis policy and work on it, is get others, like this is an issue that will affect all of you. You have to buy into this. This is your health, and so
Yeah.
it gives everybody to get into their political flavor and start talking to their legislators,
Yeah, and look at facts on the ground is
Mm-hmm.
the big thing. You touch on actually what I think is the most important political platform or just talking point of the day, the most important political issue of the day. And it used to be for me healthcare. That used to be number one, but that slipped to number two.
Yeah, this is.
It's big money in politics is the root of all corruption, and it affects the cannabis industry as much as it affects anything.
Healthcare
It
too.
does. It does. It's frustrating because I see cannabis business. I don't want to view them as anything more than an ally. I mean, I need them. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Has to be, yeah.
They're as much as I love to see policy in states that allow patients to grow, not every patient is going to have the ability to actually grow their own medicine. I want
Yeah.
the opportunity to be
Yes.
there for them to do that. But that's why we rely on industry, and we need good, ethical people in this movement. And if you're
Yes.
only driven by the monetary, a different kind of green than what I'm needing,
Yeah.
it causes a problem.
Yeah.
Well, even that part's melting down too, though, because Jim Boehner, who was the
John
speaker?
Boehner.
John Boehner. He was vocally, enthusiastically against legalization or at least decriminalization, and now he's a big supporter because he saw the green.
Right.
He's
Well,
so
and
that's a good ally. He's a hypocrite, and I despise the man, but that's a good ally to have on our side on this one.
And if I may interject, not that I'm supporting John,
Right.
or any political person, but I have run for office, and I've got to be a little more close and personal to some of these people who are elected officials, and it is a challenging position because I have had two different kinds of conversations with people. I've had their public opinion, which is their political public opinion, and then I've heard their private opinion. And what I would love to see in politics is for those two lines to fade, because when we start becoming real with the people that we're representing, that I think helps. It helps kind of humanize what
You're
we're
asking
really
them to
doing.
have courage. And
I
that,
am.
and
I
that
am.
just doesn't exist in big amounts.
Not in
Well,
big amounts.
and
Let's
that's
help them find it.
Let's help
let's
them
stay
find it.
positive on this. Yeah.
When we do have those elected officials that are brave enough to say, well, I agree with this, I disagree with that, let's support that. Right now we still have so much venom in politics.
Indeed. Yeah.
You can't really put up a Facebook thread post about anything without watching it just explode. We're
Another
just
reason why I'm trying to stay anonymous on this channel.
Yeah, for now,
because we
until-
want to be authentic. We want to tell like we see it,
Right.
and be able to change our minds if we want. When we get new information, and
That is a very good point that you brought up. I think I have been extremely grateful for those who could do exactly what you said, who were presented with this new information about cannabis and were able to change their minds.
That's key to life.
It was, and one of the pitches that I've always told with our advocates as we were, volunteering and going out into the community and having conversations is meet people where they are, not where you want them to be,
Yeah.
You know, keep educating yourself and continuing your education, but meet them where they are. Find out where their fears are. See if you can help alleviate those fears and concerns.
I'm reminded of our Becky Huff podcast now. She's a very humanitarian person, always helping wherever she can. And she said her favorite 6 words are, I wonder what their story is. You know, meet them there. And approach with no judgment, no prejudgment, no cynicism, no,
Yeah.
you know,
You don't know
nothing
their story.
beforehand. That's a beautiful concept, beautiful, inspiring words.
Thank you. It's been a moving movement. You know,
Yeah.
you get to really get to. It's had some really sad and hard times. I've lost patients who were advocates along the way because honestly, I'm dealing with a very sick population.
Yeah.
You know, this year alone, I've had 3 patients that have passed away, and it's hard because you know you understand the frailty of life.
And you make friendships, then you lose
Yeah.
those, and you're kind of in that industry, if you will.
Yeah.
That's a vulgar term too, but
It's true.
That's who you spend your time with.
It is, and it's a hard go at it. You know, when you see policy drag and go slowly, and trying to explain to somebody who doesn't have time that it's going to take time, it's frustrating. Government
I
moves
can only
slowly.
imagine.
Yeah, government moves slowly, and on some ways I'm glad it does, and in other areas I'm frustrated that it does.
Yeah, because it seems so obvious what needs to happen, but you got to meet people where they are too. They oppose what your views are. You know. So, Christine, so far in the last segment and thus far, we've been so focused on one topic. We haven't really gotten into you and your life, and you know, other than you have very personal reasons for advocating the way you do. Where were you raised? Are you a Utah girl?
I'm not from Utah. I do have roots here in Utah, family that's from Utah. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, and spent my 70s and the 80s in Florida, and
Drinking that dark Cuban coffee down there.
just I miss the Cuban food.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
It just it's an international city, so the food was always amazing to have. So I miss that. But I moved to Utah in the early '90s, and I've shortly after moving here in '96 is when I had surgery. So it was kind of been stuck here. I know that's a terrible way to say that, but I've been here in Utah for a good chunk of time, and just been sick for so long. Now I'm kind of up and traveling a bit and heading to I go back and forth to DC helping on this issue. I'm traveling to some other states.
Were I to meet you on the street, I would think picture of health. Looking at her now, MoJoe.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why I wanted to come out. A lot of us in our community hide our pain. You were saying, you don't know what somebody else is going through. You don't know their struggles. You can look at them and go, oh, they look fine.
Right.
Yeah.
And until you know that person is suffering from a really rare condition or a chronic pain condition, or, this is the first day in 6 months she's been out. And, that's what I'm hoping to do, is help raise awareness, help raise a compassion.
Well, you're obviously a very sharp person. May I inquire about your education?
Well, ironically, right before I got diagnosed with this tumor, I was heading back into school at Weber State. I was wanting to go into nursing school, but I didn't finish college. I only have a couple of years under my belt. Didn't get an associate's. I had a few kids, and so my education has been life and reading.
Wow.
Right on. Yeah.
Yep.
So, other than so many public appearances and your advocacy efforts, do you do other things to earn a living?
This is it right now. I
good
focus
for
a
you,
lot
really.
of my energy and efforts here.
That's what MoJoe and I are hoping for one day down the road, that we can just do this.
Yes,
know?
I'm not. By no means am I rolling in the money.
Oh,
But
understood.
It's a very
yeah.
ethical cause. I feel like there's a lot to be done here, and I still want to continue helping in this effort.
Awesome.
Yep.
Do you have a GoFundMe page or a website?
We
or a
do.
PayPal
You can
thing?
find Truce in our donations. You can follow us on our social media. It's Truce Utah on Twitter, on Facebook, and on what is the other one? Instagram. There it is.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
one.
on our website is truceutah.org, and you can donate there and
Awesome.
see a few of our patient stories and learn a little bit about us.
Very cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, how about are your parents still with us?
My mom lives here in Utah with me. I told you that we, pardon me, have some roots here in Utah. We're the Marriott clan.
Oh, really?
We have some roots. Simmer down. We're those cousins. But we are of the Marriott clan, and so we settled Marriott Slaterville. It's up north. My mom lives here in Utah with me. I have 2 of my brothers here, and then I have a whole slew of my other siblings back down in Florida. And my father is retired there in Central Florida.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. And siblings?
I'm the oldest of 11.
Wow.
Not all under one roof. But so I'm the oldest of quite a few of them, and they're between Utah and Florida. I've got 1 foot in each state, kind of thing.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yep.
I've only been lucky enough to be in Florida a handful of times, but yeah, I miss that food down there.
Oh,
it's just
beautiful.
incredible. Yeah.
It's an interesting little state, I'll tell you that. But sure, you got northern Cuba down south, and then I don't know, some like Gator Hickville up north. It's just a very strange little state.
Yeah, it's.
So it sounds like you got married young.
I did get married very young, not according to Utah. I mean, I was on track for Utah.
Yeah.
But yes, I got married at 19. Went through a divorce and moved out here. That's why I moved out to Utah.
Okay.
So start a new life and new experience.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so glad you chose Utah, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you. I am too.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful country. I just cannot get over these mountains. I traveled to Colorado, as you can imagine, frequently. And I love coming back and seeing these mountains. They're just beautiful.
They're amazing.
So the big question is, when do you plan on running for the Senate?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I am more effective as an advocate in the community.
Right now, certainly. That is your spot right now.
Right now, that elected office, we have to start being okay with that line that I discussed earlier being gone.
It's a big step.
I need to be able to say what's on my mind and not worry that I'm going to upset a few voters. And that's what I'm saying. It's a very difficult position to be an elected official.
Yeah.
Within the district I ran in, it was 30,000 voters. Wow. How on earth is one person to please 30,000 voters?
It's impossible.
So they do this double talk that we all so commonly hear, and it's because they can't be who they truly are, and that's what I want us to get back to. We're so worried about propping up a party platform that we have forgotten that we're electing people, not platforms. And when we can start politicking from that and not from, this is what my party says I have to abide by, it would be better. But, I'm talking silly talk.
Well, you're talking politics, and it's all silly talk.
That's a refreshing perspective. I like the way you put that.
The double speak stuff, the Clintons were the masters of the double speak.
I think all politicians are guilty
well, and they
of
have
it.
to be.
Can I be honest? I mean, I know we want
Do
to.
they have to be?
That's what I'm saying.
They feel like they have to be.
If they're not appeasing their donors, they have to appease the people they're screwing over. It is a very weird situation to be in, and it makes for very strange individuals. If they weren't narcissists going in, my God, they are by the time they go out.
You can see the changes in people.
And that's why when people have asked me to run for office, I'm like, I don't know if I want to go through that change. I don't know if people are, they're just susceptible to it and getting in these situations where they're bending their integrity and they're lying just a little bit here and there, and then at some point you become comfortable doing it. I don't ever want to be comfortable doing it. So no, I'm going to have to tell you this. No, I can't unless the community can be comfortable with me saying, you know what, that's some bullshit, and I don't know if I can.
Well, that's exactly
deal
what
with
people.
that.
I'll be the first to volunteer for your campaign.
Oh, fantastic!
I often quote other people. I did Gandhi a little bit earlier, and MoJoe knows I'm a quote guy. But here's one I came up with. This is my own quote. Do you know why our politicians are so corrupt? Because we demand it of them.
Oh.
But really,
that's
we
what I'm
kinda
saying. This is what I'm
Kinda
saying.
do.
We, donors want to hear the right things, so that you're going to give me, privilege and access. That's why I'm going to give you this money. so that you can get into elected office. In the same breath, that politician is then having to make bargains and deals with those voters that I really am looking out for you. I have to do this deal with the devil in order to help you. It's just that right there has to change, and I don't know how to help us do that other than doing it right now, talking about it, calling it out. Like, let's turn on the light switch and let's watch the cockroaches run. This is what it is. This is, it's the same thing about cannabis. We are exposing the lies. Then maybe we can start rectifying and correcting this kind of double talk.
You know,
if you want to go and fix a dirty system, you got to get dirty. You know, I think
that's kind of it. You know, and the politicking that's gone on that I've been privileged to be exposed to. I've met people along the way who've opened up doors for me, and I'm very grateful for that door opening. I was able to see the inner workings, working with Senator Mark Madsen and his wife Erin Madsen. They really taught me a lot about the political process. My politics didn't align with them. You know, I'm not a Republican. I really don't identify, but I wasn't really a Republican. But they saw past that, and they just shared what their world view on things, and I appreciated that. Same with my Democrat-leaning friends. You know, being able to be exposed to how some of the process works, and the sort of Sim Gill is one of those individuals who's really taught me sort of the political, oh my gosh, maneuvering you have to do, and where you have to follow your gut and your integrity and your morals, but then you're bumping up against all these other political pressures, and then it's hard, it's complicated, and I see it for all of that it's worth. But when I see overreach, when I see individuals or entities that are trying to impose their will onto the people, I have to push back. I have to, I'm not an elected official. I'm just an advocate. I'm just a person trying to fix, my own backyard a little bit. And I see something, I say something.
So in the Democratic debates we've seen recently, they're each given 30 seconds or a minute to give. What I just heard right there would have been a perfect response to any one of those guys. I saw her on stage right there next to Rubio or whoever. That was great. Christine, you're a well-spoken person indeed.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. It's this is important, I think. I think I've sat quietly for a lot of years thinking about everything that I've been seeing and sharing with other patients, and I've gained a lot of wisdom from others. And so I think what I project out is all these pieces of wisdoms that people have taught me along the way. And I'm so grateful for it. I really am.
Back to that political thing we were talking about a moment ago, where you got to get dirty sometimes in order to help the causes you really want to help, that you find dear. There was a quote about Abraham Lincoln, where after the 13th Amendment was passed, Thaddeus Stevens was quoted as saying, "The greatest legislative measure of the 18th century was passed by corruption that was aided and abetted by the purest man in America." And he meant Abraham Lincoln. Because Lincoln knew how corrupt and dirty things and backroom dealings and this and that. Man. But he wanted that amendment passed, so he got dirty himself. And it's we just want to find those politicians that are going after the right causes and supporting the things that are important to us and important to the country as we see it.
Right. And I don't doubt that there were some people who helped open hearts and minds in this movement and cause very high up that we don't know about. I mean, we saw some amazing, I don't know if you recall the movement, but we saw Senator Hatch speak about cannabis supportively. We saw Huntsman, before he passed, speak about cannabis supportively. So it does take some politicians being brave enough to say, hey, we've got to do a little better, and we've got to speak a little more honestly about our feelings on certain topics.
Yeah. And if we have to lie to do it, then I'll lie to do it. Wow. That's some deep political stuff.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah.
Like I said, that's a refreshing perspective. I really like the way you looked at that. And you come at it from a having this experience that I've never really met anybody involved in politics like to that level
to this
before.
extent. No one like the central fill and what did you call the phase we're in now, the affirmative defense phase, things like this. That very enlightening stuff, very educational.
You become educated as you dive in. I mean, you go in as far as you want to, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I wanted
That's basically where you're at,
Right. I didn't want to just be a patient story.
But you have run before. What did you run for?
I ran for House of Representatives.
State?
Yes, in the state for our house against Dr. Stuart Barlow up in my district. I had made the threat in 2016 when we were trying to get a bill out of the Senate that we'd come after their seats. And so I had to follow through on a threat.
There you go.
I'm not going to say something and not follow through. So I ran, and it was a great experience for me, learning the process, learning what they go through.
Boy, it's huge. Running a campaign. How many months did you run this campaign for?
Oh my gosh, we were in it 5-6 months.
Wow.
Yep.
How many offices did you have? Did you have some volunteer offices around?
It was just one office in my basement.
Love it.
But it was just very grassroots. I mean, I'm an unaffiliated voter, but I took on the Democrat brand to
get on the ballot.
To get on the ballot because at the time I couldn't affiliate with where the Republican Party was,
Right.
and they had Trump as their front runner that year, and it was a hard. I would have rather just run as an unaffiliated voter.
Yeah,
I
independent.
didn't want to. Got to be careful about using the term independent. Because
Really?
some states,
I thought that was just
independent
neutral.
is a party.
Really?
Yeah, and they have their
I thought
own party platform.
Well, really? I did not know that.
I know.
Yeah, that's a party.
I thought that I was
Yeah.
claiming to be neutral. I don't
I know.
belong to either party.
We need a new name.
Yeah,
Let's
I
come
guess
up with
so.
a new
Well,
name. Yeah,
I guess I
it's
look progressive then, maybe.
the neutral
Is
party.
that-
Yeah.
or even that
Yeah.
now. Yeah, who knows?
Well, so that's why I remain unaffiliated because what we tend to see happen is the parties, the fringe that run the parties tend to pull them further. And so the Republican Party today is not the same as it was in the 80s. Same with the Democrat Party today is not the same as it was in the 80s.
True.
So I found that staying unaffiliated gives me the ability to truly dig in to see where is our country at and what are we actually seeing and what type of leader are we needing, what type of philosophy are we needing to get out of this sort of muck that we're in.
Agreed.
And if you look at our politics, we swing back and forth because different situations in our history require different leaders that can help pull us and guide us in different directions.
Well, when you say swing back and forth, I agree that does happen in many aspects, but there's also been a major shift that isn't a swing. It's gone one way, and that is the Democrats gave up on the working class back in the 70s, pretty much. This is Noam Chomsky I'm talking here. I'm parodying.
I went that far back, but maybe you're right.
And then, so that's the Democrats. The left gave up on the working class decades ago. Then the right has gone so far right, they're off the spectrum now. They're not even really
That's
identifiable.
what I was saying. The fringe has pulled the parties so far in their different directions. It's hard it's hard for a voter like me to look at them and go, "Oh, I identify there." That's where I'm at.
Yeah,
Is I can't
either.
identify
No.
because it's like the extreme is celebrated, and I don't identify with the extreme portions of where these parties have gone. And I
agreed.
feel like they've left the voters. Like we're all just sitting in the stadium going, "What the hell just happened?"
It's strange. It is.
Familiar feeling.
If
Yeah.
anybody ever asks me, are you a Democrat or Republican, an independent, a green, what are you?
Yeah.
Then the only thing I can do is throw a question back at them and say, what's the topic?
What's the policy
Because
you're talking
sometimes
about?
I'm
Yeah.
conservative, sometimes I'm very liberal, sometimes I can't identify with one party because they put everything under an umbrella. I need to know the topic under discussion.
Right.
And then I'll let you know where I stand on
And
it.
that's why I think sometimes I like to play with the libertarians because they're fiscally conservative and they're socially liberal. I'm like, all right, I can any
break it
given
down to-
time, somebody in the room might actually agree with me.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard
Yeah.
to, and so it's better just to be unaffiliated and show up to any party that invites you. You're like, I'll bring the chips and maybe some fun dip,
Yeah.
But it's politics is hard. I've learned going from just a housewife and a mom with kids to diving into this part of it. It's really tricky to navigate all of it. But when you strip it down and you realize everybody that's showing up to these town halls and stuff, they really do care about their community. And that's kind of cool when you start to see like people who are running for office, somewhere along the line they just truly cared, and they thought, well, maybe I have something to offer. It
Good
takes
to remember. Yeah, I forget this sometimes.
and that's why running for office was so important for me. I got to see, I used to be up on the Hill beating them up, taunting on social media.
And then
And then I saw from a
sad.
very different lens, and I'm like, okay, some things I'm going to go after them on, but I'm not. It's going to be a little gentler because it is hard. It is hard. In this state, I think it's harder for a Democrat to be noticed and recognized for their efforts and stuff because of the way we're set up, and it's just a supermajority red state. Which frustrates me because then I think too many people are able to get in office that maybe shouldn't be, that are Republicans, that I would like to see it. And that's where I like to be critical of both sides, and I think as a voter, it does us good to have that objective approach. You can be critical without being mean and cruel, let's not beat up on the party just because somebody's life experience led them to that political way of thinking. Can't you just at least honor that? Like, can't you just honor,
Listen to them.
My father's experience of being a Marine and serving in Vietnam and being a cop has led him to his philosophy around politics. And I honor his perspective. I don't agree with all of it. And when he gets a little kind of extreme, I'm like, Daddy, stop watching Fox so much. Like, you're fine to watch your favorite people on there, but 24/7 might be a little bit not healthy.
Or make
In
sure
the
you
same
have this
breath-
objective observer sitting on your shoulder. You know what I mean?
In the same breath, you don't want your auntie over there watching, MSNBC.
MSNBC.
Like,
All the
okay,
time. Yeah.
we all need to curb our own crazy.
Yes. Myself
and,
included.
and realize that we are subjected emotionally to the propaganda that comes through on the television. We're all being fed. We're all being triggered from whatever outlet we receive our information. We're all being
Newspapers
triggered.
too.
Yeah.
So when you sit there and point the finger across the aisle and say, "Oh, you're the crazy,"
Ooh, wait a second.
Let's sit down and talk with the crazy then.
we've got
Let's sit and have a discussion.
we've got some things that we need to look at a little more.
Absolutely.
But like I said, having conversations like this with friends helps.
Well, would you like to practice for a moment, Christine? And by that, I would like to pepper you with some questions, and you have 10 seconds to answer each question.
Oh man, are we setting a timer, Joe? I'm sorry, not that Joe. This Joe.
No,
Okay, go ahead.
we're okay. Abortion.
I think, again, this is a situation where a woman's personal experience leads her to that a very, very emotional decision.
I agree.
It should be left between the physician and her family. That's not a role for government to be in between of. But we don't want back alley abortions happening.
And
we have to create a healthy environment for that to be used very, very rarely, but an option.
Excellent answer. Death penalty.
I've had a sister that was murdered. So this one is maybe hard for people to understand, but I do not believe an eye for an eye. I object to the death penalty, but we have to look at our criminal justice system a little harder about what those penalties look like. So
Excellent answer. Yeah.
it's again a personal situation, but I just don't believe in an eye for an eye.
Bernie Sanders' stance on healthcare.
Oh boy. I was a patient who was about to lose her health insurance when I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I was lucky enough to have Medicaid through my brain surgery. I'd spent 16 years on Medicaid because of my condition. So Bernie Sanders' view of healthcare, we've got to find an affordable way that's not putting a burden on everybody. We've got to make it available for people who are in crisis. I know too many patients that need access to medical care. Preventative measures could have been put in place. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Donald Trump.
America got the president they deserved at the time. And from these ashes, something else will be created, and from those ashes, something else will be created.
MoJoe? You got a question?
No, I really don't.
All right.
Interesting answers.
Yeah. Military budget.
Wait, just one brief thing. One brief comment. Sorry. This ashes something. Say that again about the ashes.
The ashes, something will rise from these ashes. Yeah.
Who said that? Our last guest was saying the exact same thing when we were talking about Trump and how,
Rostajo?
Val. Great things come out from these hard times. Great things can happen from these hard times.
That's kind of what I'm meaning. I mean,
times where
you said 10 seconds, but I'm elaborating on this point. I don't know where our country would have been with Hillary. I think we would have been complacent and we would have been doing the same old.
Status quo.
He threw in, this is not me supporting or endorsing our current administration. He has
pulled the curtain back.
Yes. There are some things that have gone on at his hand. He has been destructive. Yep. He has been extremely disrespectful of the office and the title that it honors. In the same breath, he's sort of showing that's exactly my point. We have been shining a pile of shit.
Yes, polishing that turd.
Sorry, and so again, this isn't an endorsement of Trump. It is. Like I said, we got the president we deserved. I don't know how to say that. I mean, and I hope to heavens that we learn from this experience, that we as a country start at least listening to what we had a conversation about. What are we demanding from our politicians? What are we demanding from politics? At what point are we putting people before politics? At what point are we stopping the special interests from dominating?
Corporate domination.
Yes. We can sit here and talk about it and play, keyboard jockeys on social media. Mm-hmm. That's not going to affect change. You have to show up. You have to show up.
Indeed, yeah. MoJoe and I have talked about this, about Trump pulling back the curtain. Mm-hmm. And it's not like he's pulling back the curtain and stepping to the side and saying, look at how corrupt this is. He's pulling back the curtain and he's center stage. But he's so transparent in his self-interest that I kind of respect him. It's a strange time we're in.
Strange times.
It's, man.
It is a very interesting politically where we are. We're going to look back at this time. The 60s are nothing compared to what we're going through right now. The ending of cannabis prohibition, the change on the drug war, the Koch brothers are helping with criminal justice reform. Like, there's so many things that are crossing these weird lines. There's a lot happening here. I look forward to seeing what my children look at this time frame and go, wow, that was a wild ride, Mom.
Yeah. And I think something good will come of Trump. He will unify the country in this ironic sense. Is eventually, after he's out of office, I think most of America will say, okay, that was crazy. Let's come together and
like
find
traumatized victims, yes.
Yeah. Well,
we're all suffering from PTSD. Pass the pipe, please.
Look what happened after Bush, and the war and all that, and we elected a black guy with a Muslim name.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah.
With a middle name of Hussein.
Hussein.
How crazy is that? So, anything can happen. Let's hope. Let's just stay positive and keep moving forward, which is another Val statement.
I think when you look at the presidents that we have, you start to understand what a melting pot America is. So, I know that for some of your listeners may not appreciate Obama and what he did, but the fact that he was a president, the fact that Kennedy, who was a Catholic, was president, these are amazing, beautiful things about our country. The fact that Trump, who was, a TV celebrity, a real estate Mongol, the fact
Mongol?
that he...
Not a Mongol, a Mongol.
One of those things. The fact that he is president. We had a movie star as a president, Ronald Reagan. The fact that we have these individuals, again, goes back to my point that they're bringing whatever talents, whatever attention they can to help shape us. And it's up to us to define how we want to be shaped as we look towards our next leaders.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well put.
Well stated. That last question, that 10-second thing, got kind of overridden. Military budget.
Military budget, I think, and speaking as a daughter of a Marine, I think we spend a lot of money on our defense. I think we're in a lot of countries we don't need to be in, and it bothers me.
Are you talking like
waste.
military bases? I
Yes.
think we have close to 1,000 military bases around the world.
And I don't like that we're sort of the bullies. We act like we're peacekeepers, but if I was to be honest,
grew up
we're really
that.
many of us.
Your dad
do.
must have felt that way.
Yes, many of us do. Many of us believe that we are peacekeepers in all these other countries, and we don't understand the politics that goes on in those countries and our interests, our own.
How do they view
ego-driven
us too?
interests
Yes.
are what brings us to these countries. I don't want anybody to misunderstand that. There are things that are going on in these countries that we want. There are things that we desire. We are not altruistic.
Yeah.
Please. Don't believe that for a moment.
Yeah.
So I have a problem with our bloated military budget.
That's the word I was hoping for right there, bloated. Absolutely. Okay. Student loan debt.
This is a tough one. When my dad went to school, his student loan was just nothing.
Yeah.
But so was the economy. We're living in that age. We have to decide, do we prioritize education, and do we want an educated population, and at what cost do we want that,
And how do we manage
and
that
how do we
cost?
manage that cost?
Yeah.
So that's what we have to decide as a culture. Do we want educated people? Is that something of importance on us?
Yes,
Do
please.
we want to?
Yes, please.
I would like
It's
that.
better that
I
way,
would
yeah.
absolutely like that. But we have learned that education is always seems to be last in our financial list. So
And
maybe
it
if we
always
look
seems the
at
costs
our
seem to go up higher
bloated-
than inflation.
Right.
College costs have just gone up way faster.
if we look at our bloated
Why is
military
that?
population or our
Yeah.
budget,
Yeah.
and then we look at our education, maybe we should start putting maybe more value on some other things. Than it's obvious what we have put value on.
Yeah.
We want to have the biggest guns. That's not an open invitation on the gun topic. I'm just saying, military-wise, we want the biggest ships. We want the biggest military. We want to.
We think
we
it's
want to
we've
be
got
feared.
it. We've got
We
it.
think it's
yeah.
defense.
That's not. I'd rather us be respected than feared.
Yeah.
I think we get more of a truce-like mentality across the globe when we start engaging with each country honestly. And I am asking for a lot by saying these things. But
Respected than feared. I'd rather be inspiring than menacing.
agreed. But we have to also understand that, people love their countries they're from too. This
Absolutely.
misconception that
Absolutely.
everybody wants to be an American is very egotistical of us.
Yeah.
And I would like us to understand that there is beautiful things from every country. Each culture has some things, and each culture has some terrible things about us. We as Americans need to understand we're kind of rude in other countries. We walk around like we really own the planet, and we don't. So there's a lot we can all improve on as human beings.
Absolutely.
As a country and as
Yeah.
human beings. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously you hate America then, don't you?
No, I don't. I absolutely don't. That's the thing is I can say these things, and luckily I'm in a country where your door's not going to get busted down because we're saying
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
honest
Yeah.
thoughts. So for that, I'm very grateful that I have the country that I have.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So
Indeed.
please don't misunderstand.
No, that was being, what's the word for that? Sardonic.
Joke, facetious.
Facetious, maybe. I watched a movie on Netflix recently called Alone in Berlin. And it was right in the middle of World War II. This couple lost their kid in a battle, and they just saw the murderous hypocrisy and lies and deceit of the Hitler regime, and they started writing postcards. They did it using gloves so their fingerprints couldn't be traced, and then dropping these little postcards all over town in elevators and stairwells and stuff like that. Did it for 2 years. Distributed, I think, over 1,800 of these cards denouncing Hitler and the Nazi regime and the war, and we need a free press and we need freedom of speech. And they eventually got caught and guillotined. And, and so that's such a contrast with America.
Yeah.
We can write anything we want and put it anywhere we want and get those, so.
And that's why, I love that I have the ability to say about Hillary what I want to say and about Trump what I want to say. And that I'm not going to, like I said, I don't have to fear reprisal from my government that I'm saying that, you know. And I hope we continue to have a country that honors that.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. And what's sad, though, with the current political state in America, at least from my viewpoint, what's sad about me is that I take the coward's way out. is they will, Mitch, which party do you support? And I can't say I support them. All I can say is who I oppose, which party I oppose the most, and the reasons that I oppose that party the most. But I can't identify myself with any party. Saying, you know, I guess by default that makes me a Democrat because I oppose the Republicans more than I do the Democrats.
Right.
You know? So
That's
again, it's
a hard position to be in.
It is.
You know?
Yeah. I can't. I guess I have to form my own party with you. I guess.
I'm starting a party. Bring chips.
Well, my wife and I have discussed just yesterday that we're going to start doing some write-ins, you know, because
Yeah.
we're going to make the politicians earn our vote, point blank. And if they earn it, then we'll write them in.
I would like
I'm
to see
done.
for any I apologize, I spoke over you, but for a
No worries.
supermajority state, any red or blue, I would like to see balance. I would like to see in our own state, I want more Democrats elected. It would be fantastic to throw a Libertarian in there or a Green Party or in there. But I think you have better policy in place when both sides have to have the debate and the conversation. What we have right now is an echo chamber where the same people who agree with the same people are making all the laws and all the rules. And that party can call themselves in a special session anytime they want, or a special interest group out in the community decides, you know, we don't like how this ballot initiative, law is going on. We want you to do something about it. So there's some influences why more Democrats in our state should be elected, or
other
more
voices.
Libertarians.
Yeah, I'm thinking that
Because-
maybe other voices like Libertarians and I don't know what other groups.
The Green parties
Yeah,
and-
they can hopefully break the stalemate that we seem to be in, where it's just two going at it, saying the same things over and over again, not changing any minds. Or
Because then you're seeing legislators actually go and have real conversations. They're not just doing it within their own little own echo chamber, you know. We have so few Democrats right now, and they have to fight just to get what they can passed. You know, they're blockaded from doing and maneuvering a lot, which is frustrating to me because then you have only one-sided flavor of politics. And so I don't know how to fix that other than we have to look at state, you know, different districts that can be flipped and start thinking what is good for the state overall? What is a healthy thing looking for our state? So I don't know. But again, true for any state. Look at California.
Yeah.
I think it's a little unhealthy too. Heavy Democrat state doesn't have balance of the Republicans in there, and you have a very lopsided thing going on.
that's a good point.
So it's not. I'm not jumping down one party or another.
No, and when like
Just creates unbalance.
when states aren't. Republican states aren't created equal either. Look at Utah, well run for the most part, healthy economy for the most part. But then you look at something like Oklahoma or Kansas.
Kansas
you know,
is a big one. Yeah.
They've cut taxes so much they can't support their high school football teams anymore, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Well, it's putting value and importance in where as a
Yeah.
community, and as a society. Do we keep putting it on bloated budgets? Do we still keep putting it in different areas that don't make sense? You know, It's looking at who's maneuvering the pieces on the chessboard.
Yeah.
How are they benefiting them? Is it really benefiting? We don't have watchdog groups anymore.
yeah. And you know, and you used to think. I mean, I did at least that. The Republicans in the state, they manage our natural resources well, but you know, they're allowing fracking up there in the plateaus of Utah and stuff. And
Well, that's another debate itself.
yeah, it's a whole nother podcast. So, but anyway, it's so.
I guess I should take back that we don't have watchdog groups, because we do, you know, on different issues. But it feels like they're looking out for the little guy. There's so much going on all the time.
So much.
Well, the only candidate I've ever voted for in my life was Barack Obama. I held out a lot of hope for that guy.
He filled so many people with hope.
Failed so deeply in so many ways.
Yeah.
But I mentioned that only because when I said the word voted for. He's the only candidate I've ever voted for. The rest of them I just vote against. I cast my ballot for Clinton because I was just voting against Trump. I did not vote for Clinton. I did not support Hillary Clinton. I was just voting against Trump.
Yeah.
You know, and same thing with McCain, Palin. I voted against that ticket. You know, well, no, I guess that was voting for Obama too. But you know, and I was essentially voting against Romney. I'm just anti-Republican. I guess that's my party. The anti-Republican party is where I sit.
It's like I said earlier, both parties have changed so much, you know, and I understand when people say the less of two evils. I get that sentiment, It's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah, that's bantered around a lot in liberal circles, the lesser of two evils, But, well, how are we doing?
Doing
time-wise,
great
Joe?
time-wise.
Are we?
Yeah.
Right on.
We're good.
Anything else? I don't have any more 10-second questions.
Okay. That was awesome, dude. I really enjoyed that. Nice little
thank
segment.
you. Yeah,
there.
and what great answers we got.
Yeah,
Concise,
thoughtful.
and thoughtful.
Yeah.
Well thought out. Yeah.
Interesting
Thank you.
perspective. I really enjoyed our conversation today. I can't thank you enough for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Very enlightening. I hope you come back after some more advocacy efforts. We'd love to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, keep us
and,
updated.
I will. I'll be traveling to Wyoming, so I'll tell you how they're feeling about this too.
Yeah.
Since you're such a veteran of podcasting and broadcasting, would you give us a nice outro as the music plays, Christine?
Absolutely. If you want to learn more about Truce, follow us on our social media at truceutah.org and on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Thank you, Senator Stenquist.